And Hester is going to run it out past the 40 into Giants territory. He is going to go all the way. Touchdown, Chicago.
Trying to find somebody open and throws an interception. And it's Charles Woodson's 55th of his career.
Dives for the touchdown, San Francisco.
I want to play desperately, and I'm going to try to drive everyone nuts till they give me a shot.
Favre threw an almost impossible 336 career interceptions.
See that?
Yeah. We have here the Brett Favre interceptions calendar.
It's the lovable kicking bear doll. And guess what? It comes with its own goalpost. Isn't that neat?
Double doink.
Football fans, welcome back to the NFL podcast. We host here on pending rebrand known as Cut the Cheese, Poke the Bear, Roast the Niner. My man, Lord Uther, is with me today, along with Gold Rush out on the fiery West Coast. Gentlemen, welcome back. Welcome back. Those of you affected in California, our hearts and thoughts are with you. Hopefully everybody's okay. You haven't lost too much, and hopefully you have good coverage. But we are still talking NFL football, and I am sure the NFL will do the right thing and raise money for those affected by the wildfires in the Palisades of California. We here at Cut the Cheese, Poke the Bear, Roast the Niner have some football to talk right now in the playoffs. Oh boy! The wild card is this weekend, launching Saturday. Tomorrow, we kick things off with the Chargers playing the Texans. We've got the Broncos playing the Bills, the Commanders and Buccaneers. We've got the Steelers, Ravens, Packers, Eagles, Vikings, Rams. Gentlemen, we have some games, real games, football games, here in January 2025. We're going to talk a lot of Packers, Eagles, but let's run through these early games and these other games that maybe we won't touch too much on. Chargers, Texans. How do you guys feel about this game running us up to the playoffs?
I'm just going to take the Chargers because I want the Bears fans to be upset that they could have had Jim Harbaugh, or we never even made a run at Jim Harbaugh, and here this guy is again taking a team right into the playoffs. So I'm definitely going to go Chargers here. I don't think the Texans have it in them, but I'm seeing some Chargers. I don't know. What do you think there, Gold Rush?
Has this just been, when Jim Harbaugh was the 49ers coach, it felt like there were headlines and there were big grandstanding plays by the athletes, and we had Patrick Willis and we had the whole Alex Smith, this and that. This has just been like a very quiet winning season playoff run. So I don't know. I don't know if the Chargers are being slept on and they're actually going to be a force, or I don't know if they'll go out meekly as lambs in January. The Texans last year seemed to be this brash, punch you in the mouth, C.J. Stroud, spread the ball around, hit, bum rush the quarterback type of team. And they seem to have taken a step back. They took some bad losses this season during the regular season, some blowouts, some games where they were just not prepared to play. So it's a tough call. I think Jim Harbaugh is good for a first-round game. I just don't know if this team is built to roll into early February as presently constituted. So take the Chargers, but don't stand under them in the later rounds.
I think that's, just real quick, I think that's a great point about the Texans. I definitely think they've taken a step back, that's another reason why I think the Chargers are going to take that game. What say you, Urza?
I like the Texans at home. I also think they're a one-win team. But I think the Chargers are going to give them a really hard time, and it's going to expose their weaknesses. Like the Texans over the Chargers, it's nice to see that the Harbaugh winning streak continues, sort of. But definitely I think the Texans take this at home. It's going to be a raucous time. Should be a good game. I don't mind it as a kickoff to playoffs. Oh, boy. The follow-up to that game, Steelers-Ravens, though. That's a good matchup. Good rivalry game.
Look, there's all this talk. First of all, I don't know how Mickey Mouse is getting into our football talk. But anyway, there's all this talk about Mike Tomlin getting traded possibly to as a Bears coach or something. Hey, you know what? I will take Mike Tomlin. All you Pittsburgh fans, if you seriously are thinking of getting rid of that guy as your head coach, shame on you, because you're probably a quarterback away. I mean, why you didn't put Justin Fields in there, I don't know. I'm kidding, of course. But I think when you have Mike Tomlin there, I think that's going to be tough. And I still think the Ravens are going to win, even though, and I also think, too, that a good quarterback and the Ravens are Pittsburgh's kind of kryptonite there. But don't trade Mike Tomlin, Pittsburgh. What do you think, Gold Rush?
Again, the Ravens, when they're playing a team like, let's say, the Steelers, it feels like that they come in with big plays and Lamar runs wild and gets 70, 80 yards on the ground with his legs and, throws a couple of touchdown passes, also makes a boneheaded turnover in the third quarter to like the other team back in. But then you put them up against, like the Chiefs or the Bills or something like that, and everything that we thought the Ravens were, they turn out that we just didn't believe hard enough because they don't ever deliver. So again, I think they handle Pittsburgh. It's going to be a bruising game. I don't think Pittsburgh lies down quietly. I just think the Ravens have more on both sides of the ball probably to elevate. But when they get deeper into the AFC field and you're going to face those, top elite teams, the Buffaloes and the Kansas Cities, Baltimore to me I'm in a show me mode. I'm like the Missouri State. You've got to show me you actually belong. And they've choked. To use an NFL fan's words, they've choked several times right at the doorstep of returning to the Super Bowl. So I like them this round, but again, I'm uncertain if they have to face stiff competition.
I agree. I like the Ravens at home, like the Texans. I think they're a one-win-and-done team. I think the Steelers give them way, way more trouble than they're expecting. And I don't think it's going to mentally upend them for the following week.
Speaking of Harbaugh's, just real quick, there's talk if he loses, they get rid of Harbaugh. Do you cut this guy loose, or do you keep him?
I'm keeping Harbaugh from the Ravens. This is baffling talk. Same with Mike Tomlin. I don't see getting rid of either head coach. Unless they want to retire, and I don't think either of them do.
No, I don't think so.
To me is just they could both get paid a lot more money to go to some of these franchises that desperately need a good coach. But I really don't see it.
And if you're the Ravens, are you running Derrick Henry more? Are you just letting this guy go until he can't go any far, and then you let Jackson do his thing? That's kind of confused me a little bit. You think you would let this massive back just pummel the opposition going into like the second, third quarter, halfway through, and then go ahead and start throwing the ball because that defensive line is going to be all chewed up from him running through there? What are your guys' thoughts on that? Do you think they misuse him? Could he be used differently?
When they picked him up, everyone thought, well, this is the missing piece, right? Here's a bruising back that's going to get you, 110, 130 yards, in a game and good for down there in the red zone and so forth. And I think Lamar likes to be the focus, and I think if he can just pull the ball down and run himself, he's going to, if it's one of those, design plays. I think Harbaugh needs to call, like you say. Just give him the hammer, for those first two quarters. Turn their legs into jello, and then you can play around with play action and things like that in the second half and so forth. But give me a big dose of Derrick Henry early. He does a great State Farm commercial. Let him run wild.
Like Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson is the greatest liability on that team. And I refer to Russell Wilson of the Seahawks, who lost a very big game because they would not give the ball to beast mode. The reason the Baltimore Ravens, now I think this is going to be a very close game. If they lose, it is because Lamar Jackson screws up the game. 100%. He's the greatest liability on that field. He could also be their greatest strength. But I think he's got, like most of those mobile quarterbacks, he has got the itch to run far too soon. And this is why I'm a pocket passer guy. I think your quarterback should be as immobile as Big Ben or Joe Namath and be able to throw the ball 180 yards at 80 miles an hour. Because you don't win games when you're scrambling around, picking up 2-3 yards, and getting hurt. I wouldn't be surprised if Lamar Jackson gets hurt in the playoffs because he decides to scramble and a linebacker decides it's my time. And whether it's a clean hit or not, you're putting Lamar on the ground. To be honest with you, if I'm a defender, I'm thinking lower the shoulder, hit him wherever, take him out the game. I know nobody wants to hurt anybody, but you want to hit him. So that's my thoughts there. But I do think the Ravens still pull out a win. So that leads us to the noontime matchup, which I got to be honest, I don't know how the Broncos made it to the playoffs. And they're playing the Bills. If you're the Bills, is this your dream matchup to start off Wild Card Weekend, or how do you guys feel about this one?
I think Buffalo. I think Buffalo beats them. I don't think it's as bad as it possibly could be, or people might imagine it's going to be. I think Denver's like a try hard, play hard team, and I think that's partially what got them there. But I think at Buffalo, just Josh Allen, which is a whole other question, who gets the MVP? Should it be Lamar Jackson? Like, there's a lot of talk of that getting MVP this year. But anyway, I think the Bills go on a pretty good run here, and I think they defeat the Broncos. What say you, Gold Rush?
Maybe I'm just giddy from them beating Kansas City at a meaningless game, like whatever that final score was. I know at one point it was like 30-0 or something. But yeah, I have no horse in this race. I don't really care for the Broncos one way or the other. I dislike Sean Payton as a coach for many reasons. But there's just something about Nick's, watching him play as an Oregon Duck and now, sort of just as the rookie. He does have that, as you say, try hard, play hard kind of feel. And they can be disruptive. And Buffalo, which has been in the trenches, Buffalo has been, Super Bowl contender for the, just like the 49ers for the last 3, 4, 5 seasons. It does come to a point where those checks start getting cashed, and if they run into difficulty or they hit a turnover, and lose the ball and squashes some promising drives, who knows? I mean, Denver's not going to be intimidated by the weather. Doesn't matter what Orchard Park throws at them. They've seen it in Colorado, so that's not going to be a factor. So I'm just going to root for yes, the Bills probably win, but I just think Denver is just playing with house money at this point, and weird bounces of the ball could give them a 19-17 win.
I like that take too. I think it's a dream matchup for the Bills on paper. I agree. The only thing that got the Broncos here is like, F it. I'm a rookie quarterback. We're just going to try stuff and see if it works. That's a dangerous team coming in on a low seed. And I like the Bills to win, but I'm somewhat thinking along the Gold Rush lines here and saying all it takes is a bad snap. And it could be a very dangerous game.
Quick prediction on my part here. If Buffalo doesn't make it to the Super Bowl, they become the 49ers last year and they start falling apart. I think that window is very close to closing, not because of Josh Allen, but of just a couple of pieces here and there. And again, it's not like I play Madden football all the time, and I know these things really well, so maybe I need to invest a little more time in that. But just a gut feeling and being a fan of sports, like you kind of know when those, like this is, if you don't do it now, it ain't happening. It's downhill next year. And so that's my little prediction right there.
I agree. I think they are who we thought they were, and we don't want to let them get away. So skipping over the 3:30 matchup, we'll go to the Commanders-Bucks. I think this game I care about the least, to be honest. It's a very color palette game. But Commanders at Bucks, I think both are solid teams. I'll throw out my prediction on this one. I think Baker makes this a very fun to watch game. And then I think there's some bad mistakes in the fourth quarter that make it a lot closer than either team wants it to be. And I'm calling this narrow for the Bucks, maybe a field goal.
Yeah, again, Washington charm season. You saw how they defeated the Bears, on the last play of the game, et cetera, et cetera. Does the magic run out? What's more important than the Commanders winning this game against Tampa is that they learn how to win this year. And as long as they don't regress and keep taking positive steps forward, they should be a voice in the NFC East. Dallas can't get out of their own way. The Giants are awful. I think what was more important than Washington winning this game is that they got to the playoffs, they had a winning season, and they're changing the culture with new ownership, new leadership, et cetera, et cetera. So I think they've already won. If they happen to, snag a first-round win, then that's just gravy. But I think for the Commanders, honestly, I would be satisfied with, this is a good first step.
The only reason why I'm rooting for the Bucks, and I've told you guys this many times this year, and to all of our loyal Pending Rebrand fans out there as well, I'm a sucker for Baker Mayfield. I just for what he went through, and here he is, and that's why I would like to see them win. Jaden Daniels, on the other hand, up and coming star here, and I agree with I love that Gold Rush's thoughts there. I think Washington is that team that, if they can keep building on it, they should be around for a while. And just one more real quick aside, I would personally look. I know Jerry Jones listens to this podcast, and let me say this to you, Mr. Jones, and me. I would just like to say thank you for saving the Bears from themselves, and for not letting Mike McCarthy interview with the Chicago Bears. So thank you, Mr. Jones.
I'll drink to that. I think the Commanders have a voice going forward. Great rookie quarterback. I'm excited to see what they do in the future. Vikings, Rams. I'm calling this one for the home team. I know I picked a bunch of home teams so far, so it's unlikely. But I think the Rams are that scrappy, and I think the Vikings are due to get punched in the face. Don't get me wrong. I love me an NFC North team. I wish them all well, but I think the Vikings classically choke in the playoffs. I think they're going into this one thinking they got a fluffy matchup because they are better than the Rams on paper. But I think the Rams have surprised a lot of teams this year that they should have absolutely lost to.
Puka Nacua has another terrific game. Stafford's not going to get rattled. And I've thought the Vikings, maybe I've just been listening to a lot of UrzaMaster this season, but I feel like they're just one mirage away from being exposed. And if you just look back to the 49ers Vikings playoff histories, the Vikings were coming in with talent and home field and all of that, and in many cases, not all, but many cases, they were eventually shown to have no clothing. The Emperor's new clothes. So I don't like the Rams, division rival, Sean McVay, all of those things, but they beat the Vikes.
I'm going to take the Rams. I'm going to say this. I think Sam Darnold's in a lot of trouble if they lose this first round game, because there's been that talk already of letting him go, J.J. McCarthy. But my prediction, Aaron Rodgers follows in the footsteps of the one and only great Brett Favre and lands in Minnesota and gives them 1 year. I'm just kidding. That's not going to happen. But it would be absolutely
It might very well happen.
Even the Vikings organization might have more credit for themselves and more aptitude to not do that.
I don't think so, and here's why. I think they lose this game. They panic cut Sam Darnold because they're not going to pay him the money he deserves. And good for him, because he's going to go somewhere and make $120+ million. They can get Aaron Rodgers for a song and a dance because he's coming off of 2 crappy years. And
you really think I'm right?
I think you're right. I think they cut Darnold, but they're not ready to start McCarthy, so they bring in Rodgers to give a year or potentially more. And I think he does nothing.
Oh, there's no doubt. Is Darnold the new Baker Mayfield?
He could be. He really could be. He's a talented guy, but they're not going to pay him what he's worth.
Agreed.
He may walk for that reason alone, honestly.
Yeah.
Right.
So, all right, gents, we get to the best matchup of the weekend here. Packers-Eagles at 3:30 Central Time in Philadelphia, which we all know are known for its lovely, lovely fans. And no offense, I do enjoy a good Philadelphia game. I'd like to hear y'all's thoughts, because I think my thoughts are probably clear, but we'll start with Gold Rush here. What do you think happens in Philly?
I think, the Philly got the best of the Niners, 3 seasons ago, 2 seasons ago. I can't count back that far. And then the Niners paid them back. And following that game, when they were just physically overmatched in Philadelphia by that 49ers team looking for revenge, Philadelphia fell apart. They had locker room trouble, coaches with star players not talking to each other, Jalen Hurts and Sirianni. And it exposed how fragile that environment is. And I think we were talking about this before with the Bills. I don't think the Bills have the same kind of drama. But for Philly, if you've been watching the team, there's drama. The players griping they're not getting enough touches, they're not getting enough looks. And, the quarterback and the star receiver have to issue a press conference where they're like, everything's fine, blah, blah, blah. And those teams traditionally have trouble succeeding. And I think, any team is built up of egos and player, frustrations and insecurities and overconfidences and all of that. But I just feel like Philly, it's all on the surface. And if you just punch through it like a Japanese door, it's just your fist is going to go right through it. So I think the Packers, who, again, is it their time? I mean, are they really ready to take on, Kansas City and Buffalo and all that? It's very possible. But I think this game goes a long way towards establishing the ascendancy, because you have your young team, you have your young quarterback, and you no longer can hide behind low expectations. Well, Aaron Rodgers left and Devontae Adams, and so I think expectations are now starting to settle in that the Packers will be a voice in the NFC North, that they're going to give the Vikings and the Lions and everybody fits, And some years, maybe the Lions are on top, some years the Packers, a seesaw, if you will. But winning this game on the road, I know it's a wild card week 1 or week 1 of the postseason, but this will go a long way to establishing the credibility and that thing. They need this win. If this game was at Lambeau in January, and so forth, and they're bringing in, another team, then there'd be almost a certainty. Oh, they've got to win and pull this off. Here, you can allow for a little doubt just because of the circumstances, but the Packers need to find a way. And it doesn't need to be 34-0. It can be 16-13. They can escape, but the escape will count. And that's going to give them the confidence that they need, for those later rounds. They get past Philly now. The winner of Washington, Tampa, I'm not sure who they're seeded with there, but there might be an easier road behind them if they can crack this tough nut early. And then, wait for a Detroit rematch, whom they face, 2 times a year, and no love lost between those two. That would be an epic throwdown. But this one's going to be a good one. But like I say, they shouldn't be striving for, we've got to dominate in all phases, and they can afford to make a couple of mistakes, but they have to adjust, make those adjustments. And like I say, escape with a win, escape with a field goal with no time on the clock. That's all you need. Survive and advance, and that would go a long way.
Here's why the Packers win either way. If the Packers win this game, I think they go to the Super Bowl, which is, you said that, Urza, and I agree with you. I think they go on a run and they make it to the Super Bowl. Here's why they win if they lose. If they lose, it's a year of experience for this young team that makes them just that much better. So I think either way, you win. And I don't know of another organization, and here's another reason why you win, because even if you lose, because the Packers, actually either way, even if you guys win or lose, they're going to go out and they're going to get some talent. That's something they always do well, and I told you one reason why I respect the Packers so much as a Bears fan is they always make moves to keep themselves competitive. They've put money into their coaching staff, their scouts, whatever they've needed to do to find the talent. And this is why they win either way. Either way, it's a victory. If Hurts is out, which I think, or he gets hurt. Well, winning the game, well, yeah, I agree with that, but I think that's any young team, right? You win that game, you make that run. They're gonna be full of so much confidence. It's like a Notre Dame football team, where next thing you know, they're in the championship. So, but I'm probably who am I gonna take? I'm gonna go Philly on a field goal.
Now, allow me. So I know a lot of Packer fans out there are looking at Super Bowl 45 that year because we came in on a 7 seed. We went to the Super Bowl and won. And it was a very similar run. We were a very young team. We had a quarterback with only a couple years experience. We had a really solid, scrappy, great fight to get into the bowl. We beat off the Bears to get in the championship. And I wanted to see if anybody's listening. So I don't think this is a Super 45 team. I think it's better. And here's why. We're younger. We are playing with more poise and better leadership than we were that year. I think our coach is more effective. The problem I think a lot of folks have with picking the Packers over the Eagles is they look at the last 2 weeks of the season. 2 meaningless games, by the way. I know Viking fans, Lion fans were like, ooh, yeah, no, it didn't matter. Didn't matter win or lose because we already locked up a playoff spot. I don't think we played like that. I think we played hard. We wanted to win. We wanted to do well. But I think at some point when you know it doesn't matter because you're going to the playoffs either way, you lose that fire. We had some injuries. We aren't going to get Watson back, but we might get Jair Alexander back for the Philly game. I don't know. I haven't read any news. We might not have him. With or without him, our secondary's fine. It's not great. I would love to have him, even though I always criticize him. It's always better with him in there. But I think our defense is monstrous. And one thing I can tell you about a young defense that's played together all year, with and without Jair Alexander at times, it doesn't matter if our captain is in there or not. We're playing with some fire that Philadelphia is not used to. They didn't have an easy season, for sure, but they didn't exactly play the top 3 teams in the NFC either. And that's the thing I point to is the Eagles had basically 6 free wins. The Commanders, are here or there. They're a pretty tough team, but they're not NFC North tough. We had to play the Vikings twice, the Lions twice, and believe it or not, the Bears are better than anybody thinks they are. They're not great. They should still make all those coaching changes, but they are a lot tougher than they have gotten any credit for this year. The NFC North defines toughness in the NFL, frankly. And I think when you have a team, I think the average age is less than 23. I think it's like 22.4 years old. That's amazing. You're walking into a playoffs. I agree, this first game is what matters. Philadelphia is a tough team, but we're looking for revenge. We damn near beat them in week 1. If Love doesn't get hurt, we probably do beat them in week 1. And we're a way better organized team because we have a whole season of reps together now. And like it or not, Philadelphia really hasn't. And they do have all those personality conflicts. That's the problem with Philly. And I agree, it's a paper door. All our defense has to do is rattle Jalen Hurts enough to make a couple mistakes. Even if it's just bad incompletions or scrambling at the wrong time, maybe a pick, maybe a fumble. That happens early in the game, and we get up on them 2 scores, it's done. We've won that game. I can almost guarantee it. And I agree that that's the domino that needs to fall to get us into the Super Bowl. I also agree that if we don't win, we've still won. Because next year, the Lions are going to lose a lot of talent because they aren't going to have the cap space to keep people. The Bears are going to be rebuilding, which they'll probably still be good. I'm not going to tear them down. The Vikings aren't going to be able to keep everybody, and we know they screw up quarterbacks. So I would guarantee that next year the Packers are the most dangerous team in the NFC North, regardless of what happens at the end of the season. So I'm very hopeful we win. If we lose, it's okay. I have no love lost. We played a great season. You know, the question really is, if we do go all the way, we beat the Eagles and we go and play the Lions in Detroit. I think we win. It's hard to beat a team 3 times in a season. And we'd be very hungry for revenge. And we still almost beat Detroit, by the way. I know it wasn't as close as we wanted it to be, but we still almost beat them. And then we would play what? The matchup, you know, between Commanders Bucks and Vikings Rams. I mean, let's just say the Vikings win and beat either the Commanders or the Bucks. We've already played the Vikings twice, and we know them like the back of our hand. I guarantee that would make an amazing NFC championship. I guarantee we're talking a ring at the end of that for the NFC. Who would we play in the AFC? That's the wall we would run into. But I feel like if you've beaten 3 of your biggest rivals in your conference to go to the Super Bowl as the underdog 7th seed, you're not losing the Super Bowl.
Well, and I could see the Rams beating the Lions, and you've got a Rams-Packers, game going on there. And one more, I'm full of prediction. I'm full of a lot of things, but I'm full of predictions tonight. Chiefs make it to the Super Bowl again, and they start falling apart. And I think a lot of people could see that just because of, obviously, the season they've had, and everyone's older. Maybe Kelsey doesn't come back next year either, man. I mean, that dude might be done. So I think this is their last run. I could see them winning the Super Bowl, just because they've won all those close games. But again, I think this is it. I don't think they do it beyond here.
I think it's a wrap-up year for a lot of these dynasties. I think Andy Reid is going to stick around. I think Kelsey retires. Come on, you're dating Taylor Swift. Why would you play football anymore? Forget that. I'm touring the world with Taylor. I don't even like her music. But no, I do think you see a Packer, Eagle, Packer, Lions, Packer, Viking in the championship game. I really think that's going to happen. And I don't see any of those AFC teams coming in battle tested. If the Ravens somehow match up against the Chiefs in the championship game, either way that goes, both of those teams are not capable of beating the Packers on the big stage. The team I'd worry about is the Bills. It's the only team I really think has the talent and the poise to win, because Lamar Jackson can easily lose you a game, and Patrick Mahomes and that crew, while they don't get rattled, they're not consistent enough throughout most of their games to win. And I think the Packers will take every advantage of that. So I'm really hopeful. I would love to see it. I'm going to be honest, as a fan, I'm not going to hold my breath either. We didn't show up the last 2 games. I know they were meaningless, and I know I talked a big game there, but there's a big part of me too that's like panicking. Like, what's going to happen? I don't want to know. So we've been talking playoffs, oh boy, for a while now. But how about this season? Is there a highlight for your teams that you want to remember going forward?
I want to forget the entire 24 season as a 49er fan. It was beset with injuries and just problems all around, deaths, unexpected deaths. So as far as I'm concerned, this was all a bad dream, and I woke up like Bobby Ewing in the shower in the penultimate season of death.
And we'll keep this quick, Gold Rush, because I know you've got to go pan for some gold here in a second. Bears have done Bears things that has become the whole shtick here in Chicago, and I don't care who you bring in. I hate to say it, and I think the better coaches you could get are going to stay away from this organization because of the McCaskies until the McCaskies sell and can get a real coach in here. The McCaskies are going to not let anyone come in here that is even on the level of having a persona of a Ditka and try and run this team. It's just not going to happen. So we're going to get like Aaron. We're going to get a defensive-minded head coach again, and we're screwed. So that's my whole point right there. And again, I just wanted to keep that brief for Mr. Rush.
Love it. And thank you, Lord Uther. Thank you, Gold Rush. Thank you, fans. Pending rebrand. Super Bowl or bust. Go Pack Go.